Many people have been left wondering how high could 𝗕𝗂𝗪 go in 2025. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts and opinions and sharing my 2025 price prediction for 𝗕𝗂𝗪. As I get into today's video, if you do find it useful and informative, smash that like button. If you are new to the channel, subscribe, and let's take a look at what's going on with 𝗕𝗂𝗪. So here we have 𝗕𝗂𝗪. It's paired up with USDT. This is the one-day Gate.io chart. We're using this chart because it has the most amount of data going all the way back to March 2023. You can see the little dinosaur down here. That's basically the dawn of time for this particular project. So we've seen a very interesting kind of move for 𝗕𝗂𝗪, right? So since launch, it's rallied up quite nicely. We had a new all-time high on this chart coming in here in July of 2024. It's gone up 13,620%. But the question then becomes, how many more percentage points can 𝗕𝗂𝗪 have? Now, this is going to be quite a tricky thing to do because there just simply isn't a huge amount of data here. There's going to be a lot of speculation to try to drive out some ideas as to kind of where this price action could be going. Now, I'm going to use a couple of tools to help us with this video, right? We're going to use Fibonacci retracement and extensions. This is something that's built directly into TradingView. And of course, I have got my own settings on here with my own levels associated. You can obviously pause the video and take a look at those if you want. And I use my charts on logarithmic. So at the bottom here, I make sure that my fib is also in log scale. If it is not, I get different numbers. You can check out this toggle button here. You can see I have different numbers on my fib chart, but if I put it into logarithmic, it actually spreads things out correctly. Okay, so if my chart is in logarithmic, which it is down here in the bottom, if it's not, then obviously my settings need to obviously reflect what scale I am in. And you can see here it kind of does that one automatically, with the exception of the fact that if it's not in if it's in a logarithmic scale chart, you must put your fibs in logarithmic. Okay, so the second tool that I'm going to use is Elliott Wave. Elliott Wave is a fantastic tool for being predictive in the markets. Instead of using indicators that only show you what's already happened, Elliott Wave will show you what the most probable outcome is based on the sentiment, the buying and selling behaviors of the traders in the market. Okay, it's like the complicated subject matter. A lot of people don't believe it works. I believe that it does because it's absolutely 100% accurate. There's a rule for everything, but the problem is that analysts who get it wrong, they don't implement it correctly. Don't get me wrong, it's incredibly difficult to implement. I don't get it right 100% of the time. In fact, I would say that I'm probably only really 80% accurate when it comes to Elliott Wave. It is that complicated, but when you get it right, it works out beautifully. Of course, I put together a course on Elliott Wave, so if you want to understand it, you can check it out in the link in the description down below for 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗀𝗀𝗀com. Of course, it's an intensive course. It shows you all the different rules for every possible structure that Elliott Wave has, but also how to implement it, or at least how I look to implement it. Okay, so with all that being said and done, we can now take a look at the price action. Okay, so there's not a lot of data here, so we're going to have to first of all try to figure out where things have been and where they are likely to go next. So we obviously had that initial launch, okay, here on the chart, you can see it. And then of course we started to see this dip in the market. So we're going to use that as our first anchor point for our chart here. We can see here that the typical moves for this particular structure would look for a rally up towards 33.757 up towards 74.24. Okay, that would be the range right there. Okay, I'm going to leave these fibs just over here out of the way so we have those as a reference point. In fact, actually, what I will do is I will zoom out and put them over on the right hand side because that will make it a little bit easier to see. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull those over there. And what I'll do to make this a little bit more accurate is I'll take a look at this wick low, which is really important. This was the 24th of May, and that wick low came in at 1197, so 0.01197. So I'll come into my fib levels here and I'll make sure that I am basically putting this on the 1197, right? So I come down here, you can see it's on 1192. So I'll go ahead and I'll just move this up until we get to 1197. Okay, so I can go ahead and do that 1197. 9.7. It's a little bit tricky. I'll get that as close as I can, and then 9.7. There we go. So that is basically the area that we're looking for. 33.781 actually, and 34.293. That's the level. I've just drawn the yellow box on to kind of show you visually what that looks like, but it gives you an idea as to kind of the levels of what we're talking about here when it comes to what that typical range would be. Okay, but is that really the potential for 2025? In that particular scenario, this yellow box, what we're looking at here would be the idea that we have a three-wave pattern that does this. But that's not the internal workings that we're seeing here. Okay, so a three-wave pattern in this fashion, I don't think is really what is going on. There is, of course, a bit of a bearish breakdown at the moment, and that's kind of in line with those expectations that I would have. So in here, you can see if I pull this in, I'm going to draw these trend lines in just to show you visually what this looks like. You can see that we had this channel. This channel essentially got broken down and we've lost the support of that lower trend line. This is actually kind of in line with those expectations that you'd have because we do see a three-wave correction to the upside. You can see it right in here. I'm just going to use WXY to complete that off. Okay, and there is that pocket of resistance that we can see coming in from these areas as well. And I'll draw a little yellow box in there just to show that briefly for you guys. Okay, so we have that breakdown. Now this breakdown for 𝗕𝗂𝗪 here actually is looking pretty good. Okay, and when I say good, I mean it like it's practically finishing. Okay, so that's actually going to give us a really good anchor point for where 𝗕𝗂𝗪 could go in 2025. Okay, using the wick high that we had here on the 15th of September 2024, that high being 18 cent flat. I'll go ahead and move these fib scale right the way back down to 18 flat so that we can be predictive on it. It's going to be as close as I can get that. So let's come in and zoom in and see if I can adjust that 0.001 off just there. It won't let me on the chart. You see how it jumps from 999 to 001. So I'll leave it at 001. It'll be a little bit more conservative. So here we can see that this correction is probably still looking for a bit more room to the downside. Essentially 0.09620 to 10843. That's going to be where we think that's likely to finish. That's a three-wave pattern. I'll use ABC just to keep it simple, like so. Let me remove those fibs off. So there you go. So now you can see that there's a correction here that's playing out. Now, why is this important? Well, this is important because we have this move to the upside, okay, and then we have a correction, and then another correction, and another correction, and a correction, right? So we have a lot of corrections going on. So this can be a part of a couple of different things. Specifically, if this actually worsens, it would actually put us in a really strong position if this wasn't a irregular flat correction. Irregular flat could be explained like so, but we'd have to see a five-wave drop. At the moment, we only see a zigzag pattern, so not the best, but we'd have to see a little bit more bleeding if we wanted to see that scenario play out. Anyway, if we don't see that, what we do actually see here and what could potentially unfold for 𝗕𝗂𝗪 would be another run to the upside. And there's a couple of different scenarios for that, which we're going to play out right here. So let's go ahead and take a look. If we run the idea that we still have this move to the upside to go, then actually there's a target range right in here between 30 and 38 cents. Okay, I'll go ahead and remove that off there. And you can see there's a little overlap with our first box that we drew on, essentially between that 1 and that 1.236 on the bigger scale. This would then look like we have a corrective pattern anyway to finish things off as an A, B, and C structure like this. Now that can of course convert into something else. Taking a look at all of this, we could potentially see, because we are above this swing low that we had over here in April, because we're above here, we still may see this playing out differently. So if I pull this in, you can see how this is contracting in like so, just like that. This could also be a diagonal based pattern, which would be more bullish, right? And that here would basically be the idea that we have a contracting diagonal pattern like so. We have a brief correction afterwards, and then we get into another run to the upside. This would be either in an A, B, C structure where we target the higher ranges, or more bullishly, we end up with a wave 1, wave 2, big wave 3, 4, and 5, and so forth. Okay, it's too soon to know which one that's going to go, but for now you can see we have some interesting targets so far, right? Basically, we're talking about 30 to 74 cents. Now, if I zoom back out of this, based on all of that data and everything that we see here, what's the most probable scenario? Well, the bullish momentum, or the bulls, I guess what it would be targeting, would be a more bullish break to the upside. This bullish break would have to come in, let me actually go ahead and snap that to the correct wick, would have to come in significantly higher, okay? And the way that they get to those targets is to use this entire run here, okay? okay, from dawn of time up to the swing highs that we had up in November of 2023. If you take that and you move that entire structure over to the little correction that we have, then we could potentially see Casper do phenomenally well. With the wick low on the 3rd of January 2024, that low being 7.4 cents, our fib scale here is set just a little bit lower than that. So I'm going to go ahead and try and move this up to 7.4 cents so that we can be really descriptive over it. 7.4 cents. Let me see if I can drop that down just a fraction, and that's going to basically play our kind of card as to kind of where we think the maximum, and I want to use the word maximum length that the 2025 bull market could possibly do. I don't see this as a possible scenario really, but it's something that the bulls I know would be really kind of keen to see, which would be a run up towards $7.52 to $22.39. Personally, I think it's better to be thinking more between 30 and 74 cents. But of course, we can't rule this out until much further down the line as to kind of what that looks like. Essentially, the idea here would be that you'd have a 3-wave pattern that does that. It's insanely bullish. I don't think we're likely to do that. I think it's better to be thinking more about these kind of lower ranges. Anything above 74 cents does put us in a more bullish position though. And you can see here that the 382 coming in on that idea, coming in right there at 43.2 is also going to be resistance, along with that 50 level at 74.6. So yeah, there's not a lot of data for Casper, and I think this is the best approach that you can really have on this one for now. And there's lots of different ways you can kind of cut the data, cut the look of the charts. But for me, based on the sentiment of the buyers and sellers, specifically since kind of 2024, we haven't really seen enough kind of demand really coming in to give us the confidence to see this one really being able to push past a lot of those resistances. So yeah, I think between 30 and 74 cents is really the range to be looking for. I think probably 34 to 38 is probably going to be the actual comfortable range. So yeah, that would be my thoughts on Casper. You can let me know what you think the price action of Casper is likely to be in 2025. Drop them in the comments down below or join us in our free Discord server. I'd love to get your thoughts and opinions as to where you think Casper could be going in 2025. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button. If you are new here, make sure to subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss another update. And if you haven't done so already, check this video out right here. It's not one that you're going to want to miss.